Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm the CEO of Dynamic Boards, and we advertise NED, chair, and trustee roles from across the UK. And there really is nothing I love more than bringing adverts to life with videos like this. The Diocese of Coventry Multi Academy Trust is looking for two new non-executive directors and a new chair to help oversee the education and well-being of pupils across its family of 22 schools. We're here to interview Michael, the Trust CEO, and Isabel, one of its current non-executive directors, to bring this opportunity to life for you. So Michael, for someone who's never heard of the Diocese of Coventry Multi-Academy Trust before, how would you describe the Trust and why does it exist?
Thank you, Sarah. Great question. So church schools stand at the centre of the church's mission to the nation, and the distinctively Christian ethos of a church school underpins absolutely everything that we do. So specifically, our vision, which you can see right behind me, is for every adult, every child, and every academy in our trust to come together in order that we may pursue life in all its fullness. From a delivery perspective, following a few years of building strong foundations, we launched a new strategic plan in 2023. This was aimed at ensuring everyone involved in our trust can flourish. We further refined this alongside the board at the start of this academic year and are now firmly and deliberately focused on flourishing children, flourishing adults, flourishing governance, flourishing families, and a flourishing school system. I would urge anyone interested in joining our board to read this strategic plan alongside another key document, which is our people strategy.
And I hear you on the flourishing governance, that particular aspect, because you have got 22 schools, so it is quite something to manage. I imagine there's 5,000 pupils being educated through this multi-academy trust. So I guess we all appreciate what being a frontline teacher is like, but and the difference that teachers make. But could you give us a sense of why the work of the trust matters for those children?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a trust, as you say, teaching 5,000 children, we don't just teach them how to pass an exam. We aren't only about the data, although that is important, of course, but we aim to educate the whole child. We take them to places they may never otherwise have the opportunity to visit, and you see them filled with wonder when they do. We introduce them to activities they might never have done that might light a spark that could last a lifetime. And we give them new experiences that absolutely delight them. For example, and I'll never forget this, one of our school leaders approached me a few years ago with the idea of arranging a trust-wide Christmas choir concert at Coventry Cathedral, as well as being an incredible collective event. I won't ever forget the faces of the individual children as they walked into the cathedral, most of whom for the first time in their lives. They then sang and they danced alongside one another. And its memory, I believe, will stay with them and absolutely with me forever. Needless to say, this choir concert has become an annual event.
Oh, brilliant. Now, Isabel, as a director on the board, as a non-exec director, I know you've spent many years with the Royal Mail, with local authorities and public sector roles, and you didn't come to this role from an education background, though I think you had some exposure to the sector from that local authority role. How did you find diving into the Academy Trust world?
Well, it's been very interesting, but to be honest, there is a certain element of getting over the three-letter abbreviations and trying to understand just phrases people use and things like that. But the board is great at putting up with my stupid questions. And I think the thing to remember is actually that this isn't just about, you don't want people who just know about education and schools. You actually need people who have different perspectives on life and different angles and can ask those different questions. So I've really enjoyed it. And I've really felt very much made welcome as somebody who is a non-expert and doesn't really know anything about teaching, not a terribly large amount about children. But, you know, I've got skills to bring that I can contribute to actually improve the work of the trust for their children and staff. So that's great.
Brilliant, Isabel. And I know that part of good governance is having independence. So having people outside of the sector is really helpful for that, because some of those questions you say they're putting up with the dumb questions, but actually you're probably asking some questions that people haven't been asking around the board.
That's the real importance of having a range of people with a range of skills, is that you get a range of questions being asked.
That's great. Thank you. Michael, the Trust talks about a vision of pursuing life in all its fullness. What does that look like in practice across the schools and communities that you serve?
Yeah, it looks wonderful, Sarah. Everything we do is driven by our vision of pursuing life in all its fullness. Once more behind me, but this vision can sometimes be quite hard to articulate to a child. So, along with the board, I wanted to drill more deeply into this vision. So, last year we completed some work that looked really carefully at the purpose of our multi-academy trust, and following trust-wide consultation, we decided that our purpose, driven by our vision, is to, quite simply, provide safe spaces where everyone is inspired to learn, achieve, contribute, and thrive in life. The word safe is important there because safe doesn't just mean safe from physical harm. It also means a safe place emotionally and psychologically, a space where everyone feels that they belong. So in practice, this means we aren't an exam factory, which I referred to earlier on. We don't simply exist to get our children through their SATs and their GCSEs. We do more than that. We introduce them to God, to worship, and to the concepts of how the ows, the wows, and the nows they experience throughout their lives are what makes us us, and are part of the life we are here to prepare them for.
Lovely. I want you to say that again. The owls.
The ows being the painful moments in life, because we will all at some point in our lives go through painful moments. The wows being the wonderful moments, because again, hopefully in all our lives we will all go through wows, and the nows, simply celebrating, enjoying, and embracing what's going on in your life right now.
Wow, I like that. Bit of a tongue twister to get out, but a
Wows,
lovely
and
phrase to hang out. But we often talk about awe and wonder for young children, and I think that is a brilliant part of it. So that's great. So the Diocese of Coventry, I know that's part of the Church of England, and the identity of the schools is a Christian one with Christian values at the heart of the schools. What's that relationship like with the Church of England, the diocese, and how does that sort of play out in practice?
Yeah, it's very strong. The Diocese of Coventry created our trust in 2013, and the Bishop of Coventry still chairs our members, who are the group who appoint the majority of our board of directors. Whenever you walk into one of our 22 academies, it should be immediately obvious you're walking into a church school. First and foremost, our schools are church schools. You will see each school's distinctively Christian vision from the moment you walk in. You'll be met with love, and you'll be treated with dignity and respect in all of our church schools. Our academies have close links with the local churches, many of whom are represented on our academy governance committees, which is our language for local governing bodies. And all of our children will, of course, experience high quality RE lessons that will introduce them to world religions and cultures, not just Christianity. And of course, our children take part in invitational collective worship each day. I must admit, despite having worked in Church of England education since 2014, I still can't walk past a school hall during collective worship without popping my head in to watch the children.
Oh, that's a great image. Thank you. Isabel, what attracted you to becoming a non-executive director with this trust? What made you decide to get involved?
Well, I must admit, part of it was quite selfish. I was working and have worked for a number of years as a senior executive, worked with trustees, and I reckon that if I became a trustee, I might understand how better to work with the trustees that I had to work with. So part of it was a bit self-centered, and I thought I need to find somewhere where I could be a trustee. And then obviously I wanted to do something that actually meant something. You know, there's lots of trustee roles out there that maybe aren't for charities or for organisations that you want to align with. And, you know, actually my own children went to a church school, and I'm quite passionate about the value of the education they had that wasn't, as Michael said, not just all about exams and numbers, but about people and relationships and living in community and those sorts of things, which shone through at the church school they went to. So I wanted to contribute, but as I say, I have to admit it, some of it was personal self-development, and I think that's a fine thing to do, and it really helps, and it's helped me in my working life to, you know, be on the other side of that coin, if you like.
Great, Isabel. And I guess you've only been on the board for, it's coming up to a year, so you're still one of the newbies, although you're about to be one of the established ones once these new guys come in. But can you remember what your first board meeting was like? I know there was lots of acronyms, but what surprised you the most?
Well, I was made to feel very welcome and, you know, very valued, because I was feeling a little bit sort of, oh gosh, what am I doing in this room? And everybody else knows it and I don't. So that was really nice. But I think what surprised me, I don't know if it quite, maybe surprise isn't the right word, but one thing that struck me was the quality of the engagement around the board. We were actually discussing that purpose phrase that Michael read out just now. And people were really digging into the words and what it meant and what it said and what it didn't say and all that stuff. And I thought that was just really interesting to be in that sort of room where people were taking such care about things that were fundamental. And there's been lots of really good conversations about how do we move things forward, about how we offer different provision in different places and those sorts of things. And it's just really helpful and valuable to be part of that level and quality of conversation.
I know lots of boards say they're getting too much into the detail and the minutiae and things like that, but that sounds like you are actually at the, purpose, mission, strategy kind of level when you're in those conversations. That's great.
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, I do come from a detail background myself, and Michael will vouch for the fact that I do tend to read the papers and then say, but on page 5, I noticed that you've registered that as red rag, Michael. What is that? So I do a bit of that. But yeah, it is definitely in the way that the executive team supports the board is very much to sort of plate up the information so that we know what's going on and we can be assured what's going on. But also we don't have to worry about, every last little detail because they're plating it up in a way that shows that the detail's covered. But they are very gracious when I ask detailed questions as well.
Thank you, Isabel. Michael, come back to you. What's the biggest sort of opportunities and challenges facing the trust over the next few years?
Firstly, I'd like to reflect on Isabel's comment. We love Isabel's questions. She asks super questions, and all of the board. I think we're very fortunate in this trust to have a board who absolutely understands their strategic role, and not an operational one. And I'm pleased that we give them the information that they need in order to fulfil their strategic role. But back to your question. In terms of challenges, opportunities and challenges facing our trust over the next few years, from reading the government's white paper, it's really clear that we've been heading in the right direction. We already have a major focus on inclusion, on SEN, and on high quality teaching and learning. And while these things do still remain a challenge, I feel we've positioned ourselves very well to address them. We're pleased, for example, to be welcoming a head of inclusion into our trust this September, a brand new post. We're opening several specialist resource provision sites in our academies, and we already have an ambition to improve children's outcomes across our trust, all of which are covered, of course, in the white paper. We've also put ourselves in a really good position to grow our trust, reflecting the government's ambition for all schools to join strong school groups and work closely with other schools that are nearby geographically. And finally, of course, every school and trust leader will tell you that finances are tough. We all know that. But we spend our money very carefully and always want every penny to be directed at our purpose, which, as I've said, providing safe spaces that inspire everyone to learn, achieve, contribute, and thrive in life. So for me, the most important thing, the most useful thing a new board member could bring to us would be an understanding of the complexities of a large charity, as we are, and the importance of using their knowledge, their skills and their behaviours to influence our trust strategy.
Thank you, Michael. Isabel, I know that you're talking about the makeup and the welcome that you've had on the board. I know that one of the things you want to do through this campaign is attract people from all sorts of different backgrounds, life experience, ages. Why is getting that mix of perspectives so important around this board table?
There's no substitute for having a diversity of views. And the danger is that if we all look the same and talk the same, we probably think the same. And therefore, we won't enhance the trust and we won't enhance the board by bringing different perspectives. So I think it's really vital. And I personally think, younger people, maybe people who are at different stages in their careers, is a really great way to learn. As I say, that's why I joined, was to learn. But a really great way to contribute as well. And you just look at it, what's going on in society and what's going on with sort of impacts on children and young people. There's no greater way to actually do your bit is to actually contribute to a board or something like that. So, I would certainly say we need greater diversity. We need people from different ways of living, different, life experiences, just to bring those things to the board table.
Thank you, Isabel. And I'm imagining your 5,000 pupils are from a mix of backgrounds themselves as well.
Well, yes, very much so.
Yeah, so to help understand that group, it certainly helps if you've got a mix on your board. That's great. And what about educational background? Do the Neds need to have an education background?
Well, I would say no, because I don't have one, and I think I'm doing all right. But again, there are Neds on the board already who do have that education background, and they can talk very, very competently about, the finer details of the inclusion white paper, or, the outcomes at key stage of whatever, and that's got its place. But it is that mix of other skill sets and other lenses, because it's the people who come and ask the question and say, well, I don't understand why. Why is that a good idea, Michael? And just the ability for Michael to then reflect, it actually contributes to good decision making and good governance.
That's great. And I know in the advert we've written that there's a few skills that be particularly helpful, like HR and workplace well-being strategy, primary education leadership, cybersecurity, sustainability and net zero strategy. And for the chair, there was a mention of sort of leadership or governance experience in public, charitable, education or regulated sectors. But what I can really hear from you, Isabel, and I know is true, that you do have an open mind through this process. So if somebody really does think they would be an asset to the board, then go ahead and apply.
Absolutely do that.
So, Michael, do you need prior board experience?
No, I don't think it's needed. Everybody has to start somewhere, don't they? And I think our board is skilled and mature enough to really be a great place for somebody perhaps without any board experience to come along and learn and to learn from our excellent board. People need to be ready to operate at a strategic level rather than get involved operationally, which we've said. We want everybody to have eyes on and hands off. But again, that's something else the board has. And great governance, of course, involves challenge and support in equal measure. I learned that a long, long time ago when I started in education, and we absolutely welcome both from our board. For our chair, I think we've talked about governance and leadership experience, but again, open-minded in terms of where people may have gained that from. So in summary, yeah, absolutely open-minded. If people think that their experience would make them an asset to the board, then please do apply.
There's sometimes a bit of a perception that board roles are for retired people or very senior executives. What would you say to someone earlier in their career who's wondering whether they're ready?
Do it. Absolutely do it. As Isabel said before, sorry, Isabel, I may be copying your exact words earlier on, but we absolutely would like to have a real range. And I think, Sarah, you mentioned it earlier on, they really need to reflect, our board needs to reflect our communities. So yeah, the greater diversity we have, the better. And without trying to cause any offence to anybody on the board at the moment, and I really apologise if I do, some younger people would be great.
Brilliant. You're not the only one saying that across the country, Michael. And that's part of my job at Dynamic Boards, is to try and inspire the next generation of board members as well. So we hope we'll do that through this campaign. And I know if you're working full time, you can still consider this role. So the board meetings are mostly virtual, lasting 90 minutes, 6 times a year. There's details in the advert of the full-time commitment, but just wanted to affirm that if you're still working full time, this is certainly something you can be thinking about. The governance model of being on a multi-academy trust with diocese involvement too, there's a lot going on. So I think, as Michael and Isabel have described, this would be a great opportunity for you. So finally, coming to each of you, what impact do you think a new director could have in their first year with the trust?
Well, I just think there's a huge opportunity to really contribute, because we're actually not a terribly big board. So you can't sit on the side and not involve yourself, which I think is a positive. And so that there are things that it would depend on the skills they brought as to where they would contribute. But let's take net zero carbon, for example. I know that we talk about that, but we don't have anybody with a real set of skills and experience to take that agenda forward. But then equally, we say the same thing about primary education. So people with the right level of skills could really contribute and engage in that strategic helping move things forward, and just supporting the executive team who do the do, but sometimes they need somebody to say, have you thought of this? Have you connected with that? Did you know this is going on? So it's that sort of thing. And I hope that within 12 months, we'd be seeing some real progress in some of those areas where the people are bringing their skills in.
Thank you, Isabel. Michael?
Thank you. Yeah, I think in the first year, any new director absolutely could have a significant and strategic impact. In terms of what that would be, we'd love people interested to read our strategic plan. I referred to it earlier, on our strategic plan and our people strategy, and bring their own skills and perspectives to shape it and refine it even further. In terms of the opportunity, where else could you genuinely have a real impact on the lives of 5,000 children and 900 members of staff? I believe it's such a great opportunity, and I really can't wait to welcome more people into our world.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Isabel. You've given a fantastic flavour of being on the board of your trust and what that would be like. Thank you for your time. If you're watching this, good luck with your applications. If you've got any questions, there is an email address where you can reach out on the advert and ask questions if you want to have a little chat before you apply as well. They're up for that. So please do get in touch with them, and good luck with your applications. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.